Hello everyone, my name's Martin.
And my name is Alex.
And you're about to watch a very special episode of EDH gameplay brought to you by Affinity for Commander. To celebrate reaching 250 subscribers, we are going to do something a little bit different, a game of Planechase Commander. We had a lot of fun playing with the planar deck, and we hope that you enjoy the chaos that ensues.
My commander is Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. I keep an opening hand containing Sorin, Solemn Visitor, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, Soul Ring, Damnation, Fumigate, Stirring Wildwood, and Mana Confluence.
My commander is Gishath, Sun's Avatar. I keep an opening hand of Kinjali's Caller, Regal Behemoth, Boros Signet, Sunpetal Grove, Selesnya Sanctuary, Evolving Wilds, and a Mountain.
Ren's commander is Isperia the Inscrutable. His opening hand consists of Pride of the Clouds, Kefnet the Mindful, Windreader Sphinx, Gravitational Shift, Evolving Wilds, Flooded Strand, and a Plains.
And finally, Sam's commander is Sliver Overlord. His opening hand contains Muscle Sliver, Nissa Steward of Elements, Chromatic Lantern, Command Tower, Misty Rainforest, Arid Mesa, and an Overgrown Tomb.
I start off the game by revealing the first plane of our journey to be Glimmervoid Basin, which essentially gives all instants and sorceries overload.
I win the die roll and decide to go first. I play Evolving Wilds and pass the turn to Ren.
Ren also plays Evolving Wilds and sacrifices it to find a Plains. Not wishing to be outdone, Martin responds to this by sacrificing his own Evolving Wilds, putting a forest into play. Ren then ends his turn.
Alex plays Mana Confluence, loses a life to tap it, and casts Sol Ring, because every commander game needs a turn 1 Sol Ring. He then passes to Sam.
For his turn, Sam plays Command Tower, and rolls the planar die. He rolls a blank, and then taps his land to give it another go. He rolls another blank, and passes the turn.
In my turn, I play Sunpetal Grove, which enters untapped as I control a forest. I then cast Kinjali's Caller and roll the planar die. I get a Planeswalker symbol, and we planeswalk to Izzet Steam Maze, where all cast instants and sorceries are copied. I roll the planar die again, and this time get a Chaos symbol, which doesn't help me in the slightest. I then pass to Ren.
Ren plays an island for turn, and casts Pride of the Clouds. He rolls the planar die, getting Chaos, and passes to me.
Alex plays Stirring Wildwood, and casts Rhystic Study, losing a life from Mana Confluence. He then passes the turn.
Sam rolls the planar die, once again gets a blank. He then plays Overgrown Tomb, losing 2 life to have it come into play untapped. Sam then bargains with me, asking not to kill his creature in exchange for letting me draw a card from Rhystic Study. I agree, and then he casts Gemhide Sliver. I draw a card, and Sam passes the turn.
I play a mountain, and then cast Boros Signet, paying 1 for Rhystic Study. I then roll the planar die, once again rolling Chaos, and pass to Ren.
Ren begins his turn by rolling the planar die. He rolls Chaos, and plays a Flooded Strand. Moving to combat, Ren attacks me for 1 with his creature. I take the damage. He then rolls the planar die once more, rolling Chaos again. Ren then passes turn.
Alex plays Windswept Heath, which he immediately sacrifices to put a Godless Shrine into play untapped, losing 3 life. He then loses an additional life by tapping Mana Confluence and casts Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. He activates Teferi's +1 ability, drawing a card. Alex then rolls the planar die, rolling a blank. He then passes the turn, untapping 2 lands thanks to Teferi's ability.
In his turn, Sam plays Arid Mesa, which he sacrifices to put Sacred Foundry into play untapped, losing 3 life. He then casts Growing Rites of Itlamok, paying the extra 1 for Rhystic Study. He fails to find a creature from the Growing Rites trigger, and then rolls a blank from the planar die. Unlucky. He then passes to Martin.
I start my turn by casting Kodama's Reach, paying 1 for Rhystic Study. I put a forest into my hand and a mountain onto the battlefields. I then play Selesnya Sanctuary, returning a mountain to my hand, and roll the planar die. I roll a blank and pass the turn. In my end step, Ren sacrifices his Flooded Strand to put a Hallowed Fountain into play tapped.
For his turn, Ren plays Kefnet the Mindful, paying the 1 for Rhystic Study. He then goes to combat and attacks Teferi with Pride of the Clouds, lowering his loyalty by 2. He rolls a blank on the planar die and passes to me.
Alex plays a Plains and uses Teferi's +1 ability to draw a card. He rolls the planar die and gets a Planeswalker symbol. We planeswalk to Cliffside Market, which allows players to exchange life totals with each other in their upkeeps. Oh joy. Alex swaps life totals with me, and then continues with the rest of his turn. He loses a life from Mana Confluence and casts Nissa, Vital Force. He uses her +1 ability to untap Mana Confluence and make it a 5/5 elemental until his next turn. He then moves to his end step, untapping 2 more lands as a result of Teferi's ability.
In Sam's upkeep, he swaps life totals with me? How rude. He then plays Misty Rainforest, rolls a blank on the planar die, and casts Chromatic Lantern, paying the 1 for Rhystic Study. He then taps the lantern to roll the die again, this time rolling a Planeswalker symbol. We planeswalk to Trial of the Mage Rings, where instants and sorceries have rebound. Sam then passes the turn to Martin.
In my turn I cast my commander, Gishath, Sun's Avatar. I am unable to pay for Rhystic Study, and so Alex gets to draw a card. I go to combat and attack Alex for 7. He chooses not to block with his land and takes the damage. I reveal the top 7 cards of my library, revealing 0 dinosaurs. Everybody laughs at my failure, and I roll the planar die. I get a Planeswalker symbol. Planeswalking goes to Turi Island, where creature spells cost 2 less to cast. I then pass the turn to Ren.
Ren casts Archon of Justice, paying 1 for Rhystic Study. He then plays Azorius Chancery, returning an island to his hand, and moves to combat. Ren attacks Nissa with his 3/3 elemental cat, to which I respond by casting Cyclonic Rift, losing a life from Mana Confluence and returning the attacking creature to Ren's hand. Ren then passes the turn.
Alex starts his turn by activating Nissa's -6 ability, giving him an emblem that allows him to draw a card whenever a land enters the battlefield under his control. He then activates Teferi's +1 ability and draws a card. Alex then plays Darkwater Catacombs, drawing a card from Nissa's emblem. He rolls a Planeswalker symbol on the planar die. Planeswalking goes to Grixis. Here, blue, black and red creatures have Unearth. Alex then makes a deal with me, saying that he will not destroy Gishath if I don't attack him in the next turn. I ask for more, and he also agrees not to draw from Rhystic Study for cards that I play. I agree to these terms, and Alex casts Tamiyo, Field Researcher. He activates her -2 ability, tapping down both of Ren's creatures to clear a path for my dino. How considerate. He then moves to his end step, untapping 2 lands thanks to Teferi.
In his turn, Sam plays Path of Ancestry. He then casts Muscle Sliver, paying the Rhystic Study tax. Sam then rolls a Planeswalker symbol, planeswalking us to Ellerin Wilds, where permanents that tap for mana generate an additional mana. Sam then casts Nissa, Steward of Elements, paying 1 for Rhystic Study. He uses her 0 ability, looks at the top card of his library, and leaves it there. He then passes the turn to Martin.
I start my turn by reminding Alex of his agreement not to draw any cards from Rhystic Study during my turn, and cast Elemental Bond. I then cast Regal Behemoth, which has an erratum to make it a dinosaur. I become the Monarch, and all of my lands now taps for 2 additional mana. Value. I draw a card from Elemental Bond and cast Armed, targeting Gishath. I then move to combat, hitting Ren for 16 damage. Ouch. Gishath triggers, and I put Ripjaw Raptor and Kinjali's Sunwing into play from the first strike damage, and Thundering Spineback, Wayward Swordtooth, Wakening Sun's Avatar, and Zetalpa, Primal Dawn into play from the regular damage. Jurassic Park, eat your heart out. I get the City's Blessing and draw 6 more cards from Elemental Bond. Not yet finished, I cast Galta, Primal Hunger for 2 mana, drawing another card. I play Temple of the False God as my land for turn, and cast Explosive Vegetation, putting a forest and a mountain into play tapped. Finally finished, I draw a card from being the Monarch and discard down to 7.
Ren plays an island and then casts Gravitational Shift, paying an extra mana for Rhystic Study. Unable to do anything else, he passes turn.
Alex plays a swamp and draws a card from Nissa's emblem. He then casts Fumigate, destroying every creature except for the indestructible Zetalpa and Kefnet, and gaining 12 life. Not believing that I've suffered enough, Ren uses his Archon of Justice's trigger to exile my last remaining dinosaur. Alex then casts Deploy the Gatewatch and puts Tamiyo the Moon Sage into play. He uses her +1 ability to keep my Selesnya Sanctuary tapped, and uses the other Tamiyo's +1 ability on Kefnet. He loses a life from tapping Mana Confluence and casts Sorin, Solemn Visitor. He activates Sorin's -2 ability to put a 2/2 vampire token onto the battlefield. Not yet finished, Alex rolls a blank on the planar die and activates Teferi's +1 ability to draw a card. In his end step, Alex untaps 2 lands and passes the turn.
Sam begins his turn by casting Sentinel Sliver, paying 1 Heuristic Study. He then scries as he used Path of Ancestry for his creature. He puts the card on the bottom of his library and activates Nissa's 0 ability. He rolls a forest and puts it into play. Next he casts Coalition Relic, paying the Heuristic Study tags. Finally, Sam casts Sliver Overlord, again paying the extra mana. He rolls a blank on the planar die, followed by another blank, and passes turn.
I recast Gishath, drawing a card from Elemental Bond. I move to combat and attack the mono-blue Tamiyo with my commander. Alex chooses not to block and Tamiyo is devoured by the T-Rex. In my second main phase, I remind Alex of our Heuristic Study agreement and cast Colossal Dreadmaw. I draw a card and then cast Priest of the Awakening Sun. I play Clifftop Retreat as my land for turn and roll Chaos on the planar die. I choose Alex as my target, making him unable to cast spells until he planeswalk to a new location. I then draw in my end step for being the Monarch and discard down to 7. Ren responds by activating Kefnet's ability and drawing a card before moving to his turn.
For his turn, Ren plays a Plains. He then casts Wind Reader Sphinx, paying 1 for Heuristic Study. Ren then recasts Pride of the Clouds, paying an additional mana for Heuristic Study. He rolls a blank on the planar die and passes to me.
Alex plays Exotic Orchard, drawing a card from Nissa's emblem. Sam then complains that Alex is leeching off his $600 mana base, and Alex rolls a blank on the planar die. He rolls again, getting another blank, and again, rolling yet another blank. His next roll results in a chaos symbol, and Alex chooses me as his target. He then rolls the die for a 5th time, finally getting a Planeswalker symbol. We planeswalk to Glen Elendra, which allows players to exchange creatures with opponents that they dealt combat damage to. Alex then activates Sorin's +1 ability, making his Vampire a 5/2 with Flying and Lifelink. He then activates Teferi's +1 ability, drawing a card. Alex moves to combat and attacks me for 5. I take the damage and Alex gains 5 life. Ren then draws thanks to his Sphinx. Alex considers swapping his Vampire for Gishath, but chooses not to. He instead uses Tamiyo's -2 ability to tap down Gishath and Sliver Overlord. Finally, Alex casts Authority of the Consuls, untapping 2 lands, drawing a card from the Monarchy, and discarding down to 7 before passing.
Sam starts his turn by immediately rolling the planar die. He rolls a Planeswalker symbol and we planeswalk to Selesnya Loft Gardens, which is basically doubling season. I let out a squeal of joy and everyone else expresses their displeasure of this. Sam then activates Sliver Overlord's ability, putting Harmonic Sliver into his hand. He then moves to combat and attacks Tamiyo with his Sentinel Sliver. We forget that Gravitational Shift gives all creatures without flying a -2/-0, and I put Tamiyo into my graveyard. We realise this mistake in Martin's upkeep and rectify it, so it doesn't make a difference in the long run. In his post-combat main phase, Sam casts Harmonic Sliver, paying the 1 for Heuristic Study. He then destroys Heuristic Study with Harmonic Slivers into the battlefield trigger and scries 1 from Path of Ancestry. I drew 2 cards from that study, 2 cards! He puts the card on the bottom of his library and then uses Nissa's +2 ability to scry 2. Unfortunately, Sam mistakenly believes that the plane we are on doubles Planeswalker's loyalty abilities, when in fact it only doubles the counters placed on Planeswalkers as they enter the battlefield. And he calls himself a judge. He rolls a blank on the planar die and passes to Martin.
In my upkeep, I revealed Spike-tailed Ceratops and gained 2 life thanks to my Priest, and then play Rootbound Crag. I move to combat and attack Sorin for 4 with my Dreadmaw. Sorin is eaten by the dinosaur and I move to my second main phase. I cast Spike-tailed Ceratops, which enters tapped as a result of Alex's authority, and Alex gains a life. I then roll a planar die 4 times, rolling a blank, a blank, a blank, and a blank. Oh dear. I then play Gruul Signet, followed by Selesnya Signet, and draw a card in my end step thanks to still being the Monarch.
For his turn, Ren rolls the planar die and gets a blank. He then casts Swiftfoot Boots and equips them to Wind Reader Sphinx. He plays a Plains and rolls the planar die again. This time he rolls a Planeswalker symbol and we planeswalk to Zephyr Maze, Could there be a more perfect plane for Ren's deck? Ren then attacks Teferi with Windreader Sphinx and Pride of the Clouds, which have 7 and 8 power respectively. Teferi's loyalty hits 0 and I put him into the graveyard. In his post-combat main phase, Ren casts Commander's Sphere and passes the turn.
Alex plays Sunpetal Grove, drawing a card from his emblem. He activates Tamiyo's +1 ability, targeting his Vampire and Ren's Kefnets. He then goes to combat and attacks Nissa with his 6/2 Vampire, drawing a card thanks to Tamiyo. Nissa drops to 1 loyalty and Alex casts Damnation, wiping the board of creatures once again. He then casts Oath of Gideon, making 2 1/1 white core ally tokens, draws from the Monarchy and passes the turn.
Sam starts his turn by activating Nissa's +2 ability, Scrying 2. He keeps both on top and then casts Kindred Discovery, naming Sliver. He then rolls the penalty die 3 times, rolling a blank, another blank, and another blank. Sam then passes to Martin.
I start my turn by casting Thrashing Brontodon. It enters tapped as a -4/1 and Alex gains a life. I immediately sacrifice the dinosaur, destroying Ren's Gravitational Shift. I roll a blank on the planar die and recast Gishath. Alex gains a life and I draw a card from Elemental Bond. I play Path of Ancestry as my land for turn and end my turn.
Ren wastes no time on his turn, going straight to combat and attacking Tamiyo with Kefnet. Tamiyo falls before the god, and Ren moves to his second main phase. He plays a plains and casts his commander, Isperia the Inscrutable. I gain a life, and Ren equips Isperia with his Swiftfoot boots before passing the turn.
Alex plays Sunken Hollow, drawing a card from his emblem. He casts Astral Cornucopia for 3, and then casts his own commander, Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. Alex then tries to bargain with me, and I reject his friendship, given that he is clearly the biggest threat at the moment. Undeterred, Alex then casts Elspeth, Knight Errant, who enters with an additional loyalty counter thanks to Oath of Gideon. He uses Elspeth's +1 ability, putting a 1/1 white soldier token onto the battlefield, and moves to his end step. Alex proliferates both of his planeswalkers thanks to Atraxa, and draws a card from the Monarchy.
For his turn, Sam plays Temple Garden untapped, losing 2 life. He then rolls a blank on the planar die and casts Training Grounds. Sam then recasts his commander, which enters tap thanks to Authority of the Consoles. I gain a life, and Sam draws a card as a result of Kindred Discovery. With nothing else to do, Sam passes to Martin.
I begin my turn by playing Rogue's Passage. Everybody shudders at the thought of an unblockable Gishath, and I roll a planar die. I get a blank, and then roll a Planeswalker symbol. We planeswalk to Edge of Malakol, where creatures do not untap during untap steps. This is no issue for my Vigilant Dinosaur though, and I cast Burning Sun's Avatar. Alex gains a life, and I deal 3 damage to Alex's Knight and Elspeth with the Avatar's Enter the Battlefield trigger. I draw a card thanks to Elemental Bond and cast Drover of the Mighty. Alex gains another life, and I draw once more. Moving to combat, I activate Rogue's Passage to give Gishath unblockable and attack Alex for 7. I reclaim the Monarchy and Gishath's ability triggers. I put Temple Altasaur, Ranging Raptors, Polyraptor and Rampaging Ferocidon into play tapped. I take 4 damage as a result of Rampaging Ferocidon's ability and draw 3 cards from Elemental Bond. The value train keeps on rolling. I then cast Savage Stomp, forcing Atraxa to fight my Polyraptor. Both creatures die and I get a Polyraptor token, which comes in tapped, losing me a life, and draws me a card. Happy with my turn, I draw from the Monarchy, discard down to 7, and pass to Ren.
Ren starts his turn by putting 2 counters on each of his creatures, which he is unable to untap. He then plays Prav, Spire of Order, and casts Magus of the Moat. Ren then casts Venser the Sojourner, using his +2 ability to exile his own planes. He then rolls a Planeswalker symbol on the planar die, planeswalking us to Undercity Reaches, which rewards players with card draw for attacking each other. Ren passes the turn, and his planes returns to the battlefield untapped.
Alex plays a planes and draws a card from his emblem. He uses Elspeth's +1 ability to give his token +3/+3 and flying, and attacks Ren for 4. Ren takes the damage, and Alex draws a card. In his post-combat main phase, Alex casts Ugin, the Spirit Dragon, who enters with an additional loyalty counter as a result of Oath of Gideon. Alex uses Ugin's -X ability, removing 6 loyalty counters from him to exile all coloured permanents with converted mana cost 6 or less. Sam responds by activating Sliver Overlord's ability, putting Necrotic Sliver into his hand. Enough with the board wipes, Alex. He then recasts Atraxa and proliferates Ugin with her ability in his end step.
Sam casts Miari's Wake, followed by Gale Rider Sliver and Essence Sliver. He scries 1 from Path of Ancestry and passes to Martin.
I played Temple of Plenty, scrying the top card of my library to the bottom. I use Rogue's Passage to give Gishath unblockable and deal Alex a lethal dose of commander damage. Gishath's ability triggers and I put Charging Monster Saw, Zakama Primal Calamity, Territorial Allosaurus and Majestic Heliopterus into play. In my second main phase I cast Trapjaw Tyrant, scrying from Path of Ancestry, and use Zakama's ability to destroy Miari's Wake. I then draw for the Monarchy and pass to Ren.
Ren plays a Plains and casts Austere Command. He destroys all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or greater and 3 or less. Board wipe number 4 of the game. In response, Martin uses Zakama's ability to destroy Ren's Swiftfoot Boots. He rolls a planar die 3 times, rolling a blank, another blank, and a third blank, before passing to Sam. In Ren's end step, Sam puts a counter on his Coalition Relic.
Sam removes the counter from his Coalition Relic to add a mana to his mana pool, and uses it to cast Brood Sliver. He then casts Necrotic Sliver, rolls 2 blanks on the planar die, and passes his turn.
Martin starts his turn by paying the 14 mana needed to replay his commander. He then casts Xenagos, God of Revels, and moves to combat. Martin gives Gishath +7/+7 thanks to Xenagos, but Ren responds by casting Swords to Plowshares, exiling it and gaining Martin 7 life. In his second main phase, Martin plays Terramorphic Expanse, immediately sacrificing it to put a Plains into play tapped. He then draws from the Monarchy and passes the turn.
In his turn, Ren plays a Plains and then casts Isperia, Supreme Judge. He rolls a blank on the planar die, followed by Chaos, granting him no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. He then rolls another blank and passes to Sam.
Sam starts his turn by casting Hunter Sliver, scrying 1 from Path of Ancestry. He then goes to combat, attacking Martin for 5. This creates him 2 1/1 colourless Sliver tokens and wins him the Monarchy. Sam draws a card in his end step and ends his turn.
For my turn I cast Naya Charm, dealing 3 damage to Necrotic Sliver. Sam responds by casting Kindred Summons, putting Blur Sliver, Root Sliver, Synapse Sliver and Bazal Sliver into play. Sam then sacrifices 2 Sliver tokens to generate 4 mana, and then sacrifices a Sliver to destroy Isperia, thanks to Necrotic Sliver's ability, and hoping to earn my favour. Necrotic Sliver then dies and I recast Gishath yet again. I scry from Path of Ancestry and move to combat. I give Gishath +7/+7 with Xenagos and deal Ren lethal commander damage. Gishath triggers and I put Raging Swordtooth into play. The Swordtooth's enter the battlefield ability triggers and deals 1 damage to each creature, destroying Hunter Sliver. I then draw a card thanks to the plane we are on, play a forest and pass the turn to Sam.
Sam plays a Swamp and recasts Sliver Overlord. He scries 1 from Path of Ancestry and rolls a Planeswalker symbol on the planar die. We Planeswalk to Traga Jungle, where lands tap for any colour of mana. Not particularly helpful at this point. Moving to combat, Sam attacks Martin with his commander, which has haste thanks to Blur Sliver. Martin chooses not to block and takes 7 damage. Sam then draws from the Monarchy and passes the turn.
In my turn I cast Somewhat Detested, a highly underrated Planeswalker. I tap Rogue's Passage to give Gishath unblockable, then activate Somewhat's +1 ability to give Gishath double strike. Moving to combat, I double Gishath's power thanks to Xenagos, hitting Sam for 28 commander damage in 1 swing.
Nice. Well, that's it for another episode. We hope that you enjoyed this slightly chaotic game of Planechase Commander as much as we did. Let us know what EDH variant you'd like to see us play for our 500 subscriber video. And as always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and we will see you next time.